This is the lecture for Ancient and Medieval History for Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. And we have just talked about the Battle of Marathon. Marathon was an amphibious landing, actually it's a place, where an amphibious landing was conducted by the Persians. Belong to anyone?
Well, found it. Pretty sure it's Jordan.
It's not mine.
Sure, you should use the distribution.
You should probably use it.
No.
Gentlemen, you should both use it. There. The amphibious landing by the Persians was conducted with all the typical chaos that such an operation entails. Made worse. Somebody want a quarter?
Yeah.
Chauncey, you first.
I don't
know why there's a quarter there, but there it is. It's yours now. Complicated by the polyglot nature of the Persian army, the fact that they don't all speak the same language. Miltiades, one of the Athenian strategoi or generals, was able to convince his fellows to break all military logic on 3 occasions. First, to attack without the Spartan army. Second, to attack downhill rather than holding the high ground. Both of those were done to exploit the chaos on the beach. Miltiades argued that if we wait for Persians to organize themselves, they're going to just roll over us like a steamroller. He didn't use that term because they didn't have those yet, but you get the idea. Third, that when we attack, our army be weak in the middle and strong on the wings, which is the opposite of what ancient armies usually did. So that when they approached the Persian center, which was the strong part of the army that the Persian general was able to muster, he was able to get a force about equal to the Greeks in size. The Greek center would retreat, the Persians would pursue them, and the strong Greek wings would connect with one another, cutting off the head of the Persian snake, destroying their general, destroying their army, the coherent part of their army, and leaving a mob of confused people up the beach, which the Greeks then slaughtered. Except a number of Persian ships escaped. And on those ships were some people that had gotten intelligence about Athens. You see, the peace party, the doves, had never gone away. And in order to get the General Assembly of Athens to approve sending the army out when the Persians landed at Marathon, the peace party had to be mollified with concession. And the mollification, the concession that was offered was, fine, take the army out. However, if a Persian army approaches our gates, we will open those gates, we will surrender, we will throw themselves on their mercy, because otherwise they'll erase Athens from the map. Maybe, if they get here and there's no army here, we can still avoid utter destruction through appeasement and surrender. The peace party, the doves, had extorted this promise from the General Assembly. So the Athenians, including Miltiades at Marathon, knew that defeating the Persian army in the field was only part of it. The Persian fleet, possessing this intelligence, began rowing like mad around the corner of the Attic Peninsula to land near Piraeus, the port of Athens, so that they could arrive at Athens, where they would bluff the city. Show up, march towards the gates, put on a big show, and Athens would raise the white flag and surrender. Victory at Marathon would have been brought to naught. Now, the Athenian army was exhausted. They had just fought and defeated a force 5 times their size. Everyone was tired. But word had to get back across the 26 miles of hill country before the Persians bluffed Athens into losing the war. One man was chosen by the Athenians to carry this burden, to do this task. His name was Phidippides. Phidippides had been an Olympic champion runner. Now, he had already, like the rest of the Athenian army, fought a battle. His job was to be a courier, to run from commander to coordinate the plans. So it's not like he had had an easy day of it. But still, the generals told him that you have got to get this message to Athens, or everything we did here and every man who died here will have died for nothing, because those doves are going to surrender the city to the enemy. So Phidippides strips down to his birthday suit, because the Greeks in the Olympics often competed naked, and he began running. Now, back in the Stone Age, when dinosaurs ruled the world, I was a cross-country runner. Hard to believe, but true. And I know what it's like to do long-distance running. But I never did anything like a marathon. About the longest races I did were 5 or 6 or 7 miles. And that was in the hill country of Connecticut, so lots of up and down. Phidippides was running. And when you start running, you strain, and then you get into the groove. And for a while, it's like you're just floating over the environment. Your body is acting like a well-oiled machine. And you breathe. Breathing is the key to running well, and well, running fast too. But breathing is the key to running fast and running long. And so he was moving over the countryside, but it's 26 miles through hill country on stony paths. And there comes a point after you're gliding over the countryside where your body begins to cry out, "Stop doing this to me! I'm a body, I'm not a robot! Stop!" Had Phidippides been in the Olympics, he wouldn't have to run this long over these types of trails, certainly after fighting a battle. But he forced himself to keep running, because he knew that even though those ships had a longer way to go, they were much faster than a man running across the hills. Up until trains appeared, sea travel was always faster than land travel. So he couldn't stop running. Eventually he gets his second wind, and he's gliding some more. And then, probably on a steep incline, it hits him again. The fact that he only has one heart, and that heart is tired, and it wants to stop, but Phidippides can't stop. Now, his body is telling him, "Deep, deep, 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 warning, warning, danger, danger," because it can't take it. But he doesn't stop. He doesn't pause. He doesn't rest for a few minutes by a stream, go swimming. He doesn't eat. He doesn't drink. He doesn't stop. He doesn't rest. He keeps going. Now, how do we know this? This is a naked man running alone across 26 miles of hill country. There may be people in the distance that see him, but do we have a video? No, we don't. What we know is this. He keeps running. And he doesn't stop. And his body intensifies its warning signs. Now, what keeps him going is hope and fear. Hope and fear. The hope is that he'll arrive in Athens in time. We'll pass the message on not to surrender, and he'll be a war hero. That's wine, women, and song. It's going to be great. That's his hope. War hero, wine, women, and song. His fear is that he's going to die before getting to Athens, because his heart will explode, or his lungs will just stop, or he'll just die. It doesn't matter. Pain, death. And it'll be for nothing, because he won't have passed the message. So in this desperation of hope and fear, Phidippides forces his body to continue to run. When he crests the last hill and heads towards the walls of Athens, he sees that the Persian fleet has landed at Piraeus. The Persian army is forming up and beginning to march towards the gates of Athens. The Athenians inside the city are getting their proverbial white flags ready. They are getting ready to open the gates. So he turns on, pours on the speed, gets within shouting distance of the gates, and shouts, "Athenians, we have triumphed! Don't surrender!" and dies. Cardiac arrest, vapor lock, heart attack, right inside of the walls. What do the people on the walls do? They believe him. They recognized him. They don't open the gates. The Persians march up. Their bluff fails. They don't have the military to take Athens. They turn around and they go home. Phidippides' fears and hopes were not fully realized. He was not going to live. No wine, women, and song for him. But he didn't die for nothing. In his last moment, he passed the message on. Now, what was at stake on the shoulders of this one running man? See, in life, you're going to encounter all sorts of people who tell you you don't matter. In college, you'll have history professors, economics professors that are Marxists, and they'll talk about the socioeconomic forces of history. And these socioeconomic forces of history are mass movements. And history, as we teach it traditionally, is nonsense because people don't matter. They're just like the froth on top of an ocean wave. If it wasn't George Washington, it would have been somebody else. He didn't matter. Only the masses matter. So there'll be people that will tell you that you as an individual can't do anything for the world. Only by associating yourself with some kind of massive movement can you be effective at making the world a better place. In essence, they're telling you that you can't fight City Hall, that you don't matter. Which is a stupid message. I mean, it doesn't make logical sense. But Marxism is a cult, it's a religion, it doesn't require reason. You just believe it. Because if you study history, which Marx did, and don't have an axe to grind, which Marx did, again and again you will see how the choices of individuals change everything. Phidippides is a perfect example of this. The man chose to keep running to the point where he died. But he passed his message on. What would have happened if Athens had surrendered? Well, there would have been no Athenian golden age of democracy. There would have been no independent Greece because the Persians would then have taken over the rest of Greece, Sparta, everything. Maybe the Etruscans would have held out, maybe Rome, but not Greece. There would have been no Alexander the Great. Without Alexander the Great, there would not have been a society that was recognizable that Jesus was born into. There would have been no Roman Empire as we understood it. Without a Roman Empire and without Christ, there is no Middle Ages in Europe that we would recognize. Without Europe, there is no America. Without America, there is no recognizable modern world. Because for the last 110, 120 years, the United States has been the guarantor of global peace and the main force of fighting against evil in the world, whether it's imperialism, fascism, communism, or Islamofascism. Everything would have been different. And I don't just mean the world map, the political map, the countries, the languages we spoke. There would literally be no us. The particular genealogy that each of us have, your parents meeting, falling in love, having you, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, ad infinitum, going back countless generations to the time of Phidippides, all of the history that made those people who they were and come together as they did would not happen. And since the modern world has penetrated the jungles of Papua New Guinea and the Brazilian rainforests of the Amazon, and Central Africa, deepest, darkest Africa, and the central jungles of Southeast Asia. Everything on Earth, from the Eskimos in the polar regions to the pygmies in Central Africa, and everything in between would be different. There would be no world that we knew. All because one man chose to keep running and prevent Athens from surrendering, and that secures the timeline of history that we know. Now, there are many other cases of a single individual making unreasonable choices that turn out to save the world. Phidippides' choice to keep running literally saves everything on Earth. Nothing would be the same. And the moon would be different too, because there might not have been in America to have a space program to land men on the moon. Winston Churchill, Ronald Reagan, Harry Truman, Simon Wiesenthal, Anton Denikin, Billy Martin, Thoreau, Whittaker Chambers are all on my wall, as is Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Because each of them, except maybe Billy Martin, he was a baseball guy, but each of them made choices to put their lives, their fortunes, their honor at risk for what they believed was right. And each of them, in one way or another, changes the history of the world. They do what's difficult, not what's easy. They do what they think is right, not what other people think they should do. Sometimes in this world, you need to be more stubborn than intelligent. Sometimes in this world, common sense is more important than subtle knowledge. Sometimes in this world, you just have to double down on yourself and do what's necessary. If anyone tells you you can't fight City Hall, you can't matter because you're just one person, what do you think? You're going to change the world? Remember, they're telling you that either because they actually believe it, which is sad, or because they gain power by your apathy, by your passivity. And by giving up an active role in the shaping of things, you give them power. Even believing that canard, that you can't change the world, is giving someone power. People change, individual people change the world every single day. The only question is, who are those people? Don't ever let someone convince you that you are irrelevant. That is nonsense. All of you are connected to other people. All of you have shaped the lives of people in your family, among your friends, in your community already. I have known enough young people who have died young under a variety of circumstances to know how horrible it is and what a hole in the world it makes when somebody who nobody gives much of a thought about is suddenly no longer there. We all change the world. Our choices, therefore, really are important. That's why you're given this education, so that you will be wise enough to be free. That doesn't mean agreeing with my politics or your parents' politics or anyone's politics. It means that you are wise enough to do what you think is right and be effective at it. You have some?
It reminds me of something that I read where people in like sci-fi movies and time traveling are always worried about they'll do one little choice that will cause the future
Yeah, the butterfly
to change.
effect.
But no one realizes that one little choice they make today could affect the future, like the butterfly.
Absolutely. And that is the truth. Everything matters. Every choice that we make. The Zoroastrians were not wrong about that. Every choice that a person makes in their life has some kind of effect. And it's not always predictable. I'm in a profession of fools. Teachers are fools. Because what we do is we spend ourselves and our talents in the blind hope that something we say or do might matter to somebody like you 20 years from now as you're making an important choice. We have no way of knowing. And the fact is, you might do something because of something we did and not remember us. That isn't the point. The point isn't for you to go, oh, wow, that Mr. Genorio, he really... No. The point is that we did something to help you live your lives better. Everyone in my profession has this hope. And it's an unprovable hope. It's why we do what we do. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's a foolish thing, because it is. But I also think it's a wonderful hope and foolish hope. And all of you should have some kind of wonderful and foolish hope in your, whatever that is. Because it makes life fun. Anyway, Phidippides changes the world, and Athens doesn't surrender. The Persians go back, and King Darius, for the remaining few years of his life, is a frustrated and angry man who wants revenge on Athens and on the Greeks. And then he dies. 10 years go by. There's a new king in Persia, great King Xerxes, the son of Darius, a man who thinks that Greece blighted the last few years of his father's life. So he takes up the challenge that his father had, destroy the Greeks, and makes that his personal cause. Xerxes builds the greatest army and the grandest fleet the world has ever seen up to that point. Hundreds of thousands of Persian soldiers and soldiers of the Persian Empire gather in Ionia. Thousands of ships gather in the Hellespont area and the Dardanelles area between Asia and Europe. The ships are all lashed together in these bridges, side by side. The current flows past them, and the armies begin to walk across these bridges made of ships. The army is so great in number, and the navy is so great in number, that the saying is they literally drink the streams dry. There are so many thirsty mouths. Now, the Persians, when they cross over, cannot all fit on the ships. So, what the Persians do is they move in parallel to one another. The fleet and the army, they move along the coast together, so that if there's a problem, they can support one another. Massive numbers of ships and men are hurtling towards Greece. The Persians are so serious about keeping their forces concentrated that the army, when it gets to Mount Athos, which is here, digs a canal across the neck of the peninsula for the fleet to pass through. Why? Why would they do that? Well, the seaway off the southern tip of the peninsula of Mount Athos is a ship's graveyard filled with treacherous currents and rocks and reefs and storms. So by literally carving a canal through, the Persian fleet and the Persian army are able to stay in positions of mutual support with one another. And the fleet can avoid that ship's graveyard off the coast of Mount Athos. So they're heading southward towards Greece. Meanwhile, in Athens and in Sparta, two individuals, two men, realized that the time that they were preparing for has come. In Sparta, one of their two kings that work in tandem with one another is named Leonidas. Leonidas of Sparta has been working for years to get ready for the inevitable Persian invasion. He is not one of these people who lets his hopes dictate his reality. Leonidas understands the Persians are coming, and they're coming hot. They're coming fast, and they're coming with revenge in their mind. If they come, Greece will be destroyed. Leonidas has been working with an Athenian general named Themistocles on a plan. But both Leonidas and Themistocles have been sandbagged, have been interfered with by the doves, by the peace party in Greece. In Leonidas's case, his plans to work with Athens closely puts him at odds with various ephors, which are priests of Sparta, and other factions that are in Sparta that say Athens should be left to its own devices. We should hole up in Sparta and defend the Isthmus of Corinth and let the Athenians die. After all, they got involved in the Ionian revolt. We didn't. Leonidas continues to say, no, what happens to Athens will happen to us. Our fates are tied. We must work with our ally. So Leonidas is considered to be a sellout by a lot of his own people because he is more interested, it seems, in protecting Athens than he is in protecting Sparta. In Athens, it's worse for Themistocles. In the years after the Battle of Marathon and Phidippides' death, Themistocles says to the General Assembly and to anyone who will listen, understand, our victory is temporary. The Persians are coming. They are going to get here. And when they get here, there is nothing we can do to defend this city. Our city will fall. They will bring an army so great that if, just like ants, they swarmed up the walls, we couldn't stop them. What we need to do is have a different plan. So here's the coast near Athens. And here's the island of Salamis, sort of shaped a bit like a bean. And the city of Athens is inland right about here. And this is the water. So you know. And this is right here on this bigger map. Themistocles says, since we cannot, in my judgment, in any way protect Athens, what we need to do now is start building supply dumps and fortifications on the island of Salamis. If we do this, when the Persians arrive, we can empty the city of Athens and in a coordinated plan cross the straits, and our population will be safe on Salamis Island. Our navy will hold the narrow waters between Salamis Island and the sea. The coast here is unsuitable for landings. Our fleet will protect our people. Meanwhile, the Spartan army will march up, and then together we'll fight the Persians. So Themistocles, you think war is going to happen. Why? Because you're a warmonger. You warmonger. It's not that you think war is inevitable. You want war. You crave glory. You're a glory hunt. You're a warmonger. You're the worst kind of person. If it wasn't for people like you, Persia would leave us alone. Warmonger. And worse than that, you're not only a warmonger, you're a defeatist. You think we'll lose. If the Persians attack, you assume we can't win. You warmonger. You defeatist. Bless you. So, Themistocles comes this close to being ostracized. He is ridiculed as a warmonger and a defeatist. He is basically in the political wilderness. Nobody is going to listen to him until the Persian army crosses the Hellespont, crosses the canal at Mount Athos. At this point, all those years that Greece had to prepare have been wasted. Themistocles is put in charge of the defense. And instead of having a well-coordinated plan, with plenty of fortifications, food and water, medical supplies, and everything else the people of Athens will need, waiting on Salamis Island, it's a barren wasteland. But still, Themistocles begins ordering the evacuation of the people of Athens to Salamis. He sends word to Leonidas, Persians are coming, we need your help. We need the Spartans to delay the Persians so that we can finish emptying Athens onto Salamis Island. Leonidas brings it to his other king and to his people, and they say, no. We've got another religious festival. We're not going to rush things. And even if we are compelled to go to war with Athens, on the side of Athens against Persia, why should we leave our homeland and march to the north of Greece and delay the Persians? After all, the Athenians were foolish. They didn't make preparations. Why should we put our army at unnecessary risk? No. We should stay here, and we should wait to fight on our terms. To which Leonidas said, nuts to you, you fools. The Persians are coming. If we let Athens fall, we fight basically alone. Greece will fall. If you won't send me north with an army, I will go north with a mere 300 men, the personal bodyguard allowed by Spartan law for a king of Sparta. So, the Spartan army stays home, but Leonidas and his 300 march north. They march north to Thermopylae, which means the hot gates. Thermopylae is a place on the coast that has a natural geographical bottleneck. There's the coast. There's the sea. Yeah. There's the mountains. Now, these mountains are pretty rough, pretty impassable. So, what Leonidas is going to do is march north towards Thermopylae. And place his army here. Several thousand people from Sparta's allies joined the 300. But the 300 Spartans are going to be the key to this victory. The key is drawing the Persians into a narrow space. There's going to be a limited number of Persians able to fight a limited number of Greeks. At that point, it's not about numbers. It's about combat power. We believe that the Greeks can chew up the Persians like a mouth can chew pizza. The Persians will come and we'll destroy them, and they'll come and we'll destroy them, and they'll come and we'll destroy them, and we will hold the line at Thermopylae. Now, for this to work, Themistocles needs to move the Athenian fleet north to this spot here. at Artemisium. If the Athenian fleet can deflect the Persian fleet, then the Persian army will have no choice but to march alone towards Thermopylae. And when the Persians come, they will face this immovable object of a line without having ships that could move the Persians around the bottom. So the Athenian fleet, at Themistocles' command, moves north from Athens to Artemisium and is going to block the Persian fleet from staying with their army. Now, let's look at the various types of troops that are being brought to bear. Please shut off the right light switch. Thank you. Small. Even though I asked for large, giving me small pictures. Yep.
Are they on the back side?
Yes, they are. So you can look there. Actually, that same picture is there. Okay. I'll show you an analogous picture, I guess. No. Fine. Yeah. So look at the back of your packet, and you will see a picture of a Persian Immortal. And so okay, this will do. Let's see. Okay. This will do. It's not the same picture that you've got, but it gives you a similar idea. Okay. Even though the Persian army is polyglot, which means multiple languages, and heterodox, which means you've got Jewish slingers, and you've got Saka bowmen, and you've got all sorts of different types of troops that are not the same in any way. The heart of Persia's land forces is a unit called the 10,000 Immortals. The 10,000 Immortals aren't called 10,000 for nothing. It's not that they are superhumans. I'm going to show you scenes from 300 tomorrow. And in the movie 300, the Immortals are depicted as a bunch of zombie robot Japanese samurai. They are not that. They're called Immortals because after every battle that they fight, they are replenished in number. So if they lose 865 soldiers in a battle, the next day 865 men picked from other units will fill their ranks, and there'll always be 10,000 Immortals. That's the idea. They are composed of Persians, and they are light infantry. Now, as light infantry, their goal is not to fight a dense packed battle. Their goal is to move quickly across the countryside and strike fast and strike hard and move. Persia is so big that the mobility of these light foot soldiers make them valuable. Now, they're athletes, they are excellent with weapons, but they are equipped with light body armor, if any. Cloth armor, maybe some leather. This actually, this looks like scale armor. It is not. It's more padding that they have with maybe some leather. So they're wearing light body armor. They've got spears and they've got bows. But what really tells about the Persian Immortal is their shields. Because the shield of the Immortal is made of wicker. Wicker! Wicker is what lawn furniture is made out of. It's those twigs that are wrapped up. Imagine going into battle with a spear and a wicker shield. What possible point would there be in having a wicker shield? Well, maybe what you can do with it is catch the arrows or spears of the enemy as they are thrust at you and maybe yank them away from hitting your body. But what's going to happen is your shield is going to fall apart quickly. Still, that isn't the point. The point of the Persian Immortal is not to fight a close-in battle. The point of the Persian soldier is to hit the enemy hard, bypassing the enemy's soldiers and hitting their supply lines, basically being light forces. Fast, not very great at the head-on fights that this war is going to involve. Now, let's look at the Greek Hoplite, which is also pictured in your packet. Now, hoplites are what Greek soldiers are called. Yeah, this looks a nice big picture there, so let's see. Okay, let's see if this works. This is the picture you have. Ah! Ha ha! It worked. Okay, so at least one of them worked. Okay, so here you have a Greek hoplite. Now, this is a totally different kind of fighter. This is heavy infantry, not light infantry. The hoplite is named for his shield. Big, heavy, metal-reinforced wooden shield called a hoplon. They don't all have these sort of cartoon drawings on them. Now, the hoplon is the heart of the Greek soldier. So the Greek also has a spear and a sword. But he has greaves, metal greaves, which are metal, usually bronze, coverings over the shins and even sometimes over the knees, so that the enemy can't just slash at the lower legs and kill them or immobilize them. He's also got what's called a Quiroz, which is basically a big breastplate. And that breastplate is not made of abs, like in the movie 300. In 300, you've got a bunch of guys running around in leather man panties with bare chests and abs. And their abs are so tough that the Persians can't penetrate them with a steel-tipped spear. Not the way it was. In reality, the Greeks wore body armors. They wore either a cuirass made of metal and leather and wood, or they just wore a metal breastplate. In any case, this is going to stop a spear most of the time. Now, it only covers like what a vest covers, but still, it's better than having an exposed chest and guts. So you have a heavy shield, not made of wicker. You have metal greaves. You have a breastplate, or Quiroz, and you got this heavy helmet. All of which are designed not for mobility, but for close-in fighting. You march up in what's called a phalanx. A phalanx is a tight-packed Greek formation. The shields are linked to one another. You've got your spears, and you march up. Everything linked. Your shield isn't just protecting you, it's protecting the man on your left. Just as the man on your left or right is protecting you partially with his shield. If arrows come, you can hunker down. If the enemy gets close, stabby, 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 shield, 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 stabby, shield, stabby, shield, shield, stabby, shield. It's all, that's very military. It sounds silly, but no, that's very important. Serious stuff. Shield, stabby, steel, shield. And what it means is that in a close-up fight, the Immortal is completely unsuited to fight the Hoplite. If it's an open battle where there's mobility involved, the Hoplite is going to be like the tortoise. The Immortal will be like the hare. You know the story of the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise is slow, the hare is fast. But if you have a battle between the mountains and the sea, like at Thermopylae, and the enemy is forced to come at you one-on-one, hand-to-hand, without mobility being a factor, the Hoplite has every advantage. It actually goes further than that. The Hoplites moving up to Thermopylae are Spartans, not Athenians. The Spartan society is based upon controlling their slaves. I told you yesterday that there are times in Sparta's history where every Spartan was matched by 7 to 20 slaves. The slaves revolted from time to time, but the average Spartan female had to be able to kill the average male slave at any time. And women do not normally have the ability to kill men in a straight-up fight. So Spartan women are trained in combat, Spartan slaves are not. The men go off to the army at age 7. Age 7. And when they go off to the army at age 7, their mommy says to them, "Baby boy who I love, light of my life, come home with your shield or on it." In other words, baby boy, light of my life, Spartan, come home victorious, that's with your shield, or come home dead, a casualty being carried on the shield. That's mom. And then the Spartan boys were basically systematically starved for the next 7 years, where they had to fight each other for scraps and steal, and if they got caught stealing, they were beaten. So they didn't want to get caught, but they had to steal in order to get enough food to survive. And all of this was designed to produce the ultimate warrior. And the Spartans did. Yes?
Didn't they purposely starve them so that they have to steal?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, the U.S. military used to have similar ideas, but then we got all in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We don't do that as much anymore. But it used to be that soldiers would have to scrounge, and that's a fancy soldiery word for steal. But yeah, no, they made them because if you can get away with stealing from Spartans, you can probably sneak up on an enemy camp. So where we're going to leave it is this. The Athenian fleet is heading towards Artemisium. Spartan 300 with their allies are heading towards Thermopylae, and Themistocles is evacuating Athens to the island of Phalanx. Any questions, comments, or thoughts? Okay, you can talk quietly among yourselves. Thank you.